Okay, from a strategic perspective, I'd just like to close it out by asking each of you a question. Steve, I'm going to start with you. So I want to expand the conversation a little. There have been other movements have happened over the last few years, really powerful movements, both from a business and a community perspective. The Me Too movement is probably one of the obvious ones, but I'm wondering, are we at the start of a new movement, or will this not be something that gets the same kind of momentum?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't have any special powers to tell the future, but I think it's a change that's here to stay. That we've seen a shift. The shift is that psychosocial issues are now something that are on people's radar, and I don't see that changing. And I think it'll become more and more a focus. I said at the start, I'm not trying to make a political point, but I think with Labor governments in, it'll be a priority for them, and we'll continue to see movement in this space. And in terms of expectations in the workplace, I think certainly in the work that I do, it's clear that a big concern for people is feeling safe at work from a psychological perspective as well as a physical perspective. So I don't see this stopping. I don't see it slowing down. I see it continuing or increasing.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle, I'd love your thoughts on this. Is it a conversation happening in businesses that you work with? And where exactly does the conversation reside? Is it on the risk side of the business, the HR side of the business? Are they talking to each other?
Everyone's talking about this right now because everyone's wondering what is the obligation and how do we lean into this? This needs to be a cross-functional conversation. The worst thing we can do right now is make this a HR problem or a risk problem or a legal problem because there are so many elements to it. Yes, you can treat these risks the same way you would treat physical risks, but you also need to build capability. You need policies in place. You need senior leadership buy-in. So everyone needs to be at the table for this conversation, and it can't just be a functional problem, but a business problem to be solved. And every member of a leadership team needs to hold an accountability to actually making that change, because at the end of the day, it's a cultural change as well as a policy change and a capability change.
Excellent. Thank you. And we work with a range of different clients who are in different maturity levels from this perspective. And I think it's really important to say, if this is a conversation you're just starting to have, that's absolutely fine, but please have it. Erika, we've worked with some businesses, though, who have absolutely got this right. So what leadership traits or what traits do you see in leadership teams who are nailing this at the moment?
Yeah, look, just to build on, what Steve had said and also Michelle had said, where they're doing this effectively, they're engaging with the conversation. I get it's scary. If, on the surface, it is a bit scary. It feels a bit negative. But if you put that aside and again approach it with curiosity, that's the approach to take. And where it's being done well, it starts at the top, right? It's at the director level, and then they're engaging with their C-suite, and then that's filtering down. We do know, and this is published from, McKinsey, we do know that in terms of psychological safety, team climate is the most important driver here. And the way to actually establish a positive team climate is to do one of two things. It's first to actually support your team. So you need to support them, and what that looks like, it's consulting them, soliciting input and feedback. So it's that listening. And then it's demonstrating care and support for what they need as employees, but also as individuals. And then once you have the foundation, you can then help them learn and grow and stretch. So if we, for us to actually have that culture at the team level, that needs to be modeled and supported by directors, by the C-suite. And then you see this openness to this section of, okay, first we need to ensure that we listen and we support, and then we challenge. And then if we can role model from the top down, that will then build a culture of psychological safety.
Excellent.
Erika, I'd really love to add something to that as well. And, Jeremy, when you said if you're just starting this conversation, please have it. The other thing to keep in mind here is if you're just starting the conversation and you're not sure where to start, this is where networking is going to be so critical, because a lot of people are having this conversation and they too have been exactly, at that beginning point around where do we start. And the one thing that I highly recommend as a good place to start is have a look inward. Take some time to understand what is happening in your organization right now. If your engagement surveys don't have the questions in it that help you gauge culture and help you gauge how people are feeling or what the indicators for psych safety are looking like, you need to revisit those and look inward and assess. That's a really great place to start. And it doesn't need to be a full-blown survey. It can be as simple as a pulse or a check-in for people to just temperature check what's happening, so that then you can then lean into the how do we want to approach this? What are others doing and what makes sense for our size business and our capability today as well.
And look, if I may, and Steve, please correct me if I'm going really off piste here, but for me, it's about get a baseline, understand where you're at, and then once you know where you're at, then work and iterate to mitigate any of the risks that you might see coming. No business is going to do their baseline and go, woohoo, we're great. There's always things bubbling under, but it's about we need to know where they're at so we can act. And if we're scared and want to bury it, we don't know where we're at, and that poses a risk in itself. So would you agree, Steve?
Oh, I'd agree entirely with that. I mean, I think the one of the big shifts is the idea that if you know nothing, you can't assume that everything's okay. So I think what we're seeing increasingly is whether it's regulators or legislative obligations saying, look, you have to make an effort to understand where are the risks in your organisation, and then having identified what they are, you've got to say, okay, what am I doing about it? And I don't think people are expecting, regulators and legislation aren't expecting immediate perfection, but they're expecting to see you trying to address the issue and responding in a logical way when you get information that, look, these are the issues in our workplace. You've got to be able to say as a director or a senior leader in the organisation, okay, well, this is what I did about it. I think that's one of the fundamental points here. It's an issue that has sat sort of under the rug for a long time, and I think people are increasingly saying, well, you've got to get on top of the issue.